talk now to Howard Yu, who's a professor of management and innovation at IMD Business School here in Hong Kong. Good morning to you. Good afternoon to you, Professor Yu. Why has Washington done this? It seems that President Biden is following in the footsteps of President Trump.
Well, in many ways, if you're looking at the implementation of the latest round of executive orders, you're right, Andrew. I mean, there hasn't been change in terms of direction, but probably is even more strengthening in terms of a legal framework, giving it a little bit more rigor in terms of who are the one we could invest and who are the one we could do business with. And I think it really illustrates there is nothing shift in terms of the strategic rivalry between the two countries. If anything, it's just getting accelerated with a level rigor going forward.
At the same time, it seems that Beijing is trying to discourage local companies from going to America and listing on the stock market there. Some of the companies on the list have already been thrown off the American stock market, American stock markets. Isn't really Washington doing what Beijing wants and making it less attractive for Chinese companies to try and list elsewhere outside of China?
I mean, these days you hear a lot about Beijing government cracking down tech companies and discouraging Chinese companies going abroad. I think there are twofold under this idea. One is, of course, foreign capital will always be attractive. However, from a Beijing government perspective, what they don't want is the sort of listing requirement, meaning auditing, which forces these Chinese companies to disclose certain information to third-party auditor or the general public. Is the fear of leaking information, perhaps of strategic importance or sensitivity, that makes Beijing trying to slow down the amount of companies going abroad. So we heard about DD and all these organizations. But there is also an element of retaliation for sure, that because the American government is banning Chinese companies from listing in America, Beijing government felt compelled to do equal measure to declare certain retaliation in return.
Does that include Hong Kong, though? I mean, you're saying about companies, Beijing is reluctant to let companies share financial information because they're worried that might that give away state secrets. Does that apply in Hong Kong as well? Does Hong Kong require mainland companies to give information that Beijing may not want?
And this is where an area that at IMD we always discuss with executive, because their Chinese market is huge for a lot of multinational. And right now, the role in Hong Kong is playing exactly this part, particularly in the investment area, because, when company listed in next share, foreigners can still get access to it. And yet, most is being still, at least at this stage, is perceived as a higher level of transparency. So this is an area that most observers are paying a lot of attention to, whether the legal framework in terms of investment and disclosure and financial standing will shift in Hong Kong. Right now, we haven't seen too much change on the ground yet. And from a Beijing perspective, Hong Kong is still allowing a better control in terms of information disclosure, and if needed, rules and regulation can be shifted as needed.
Okay, Howard Yu at IMD Business School, thanks for joining us on Newsday.
My pleasure.
Andrew Wood with the Business from Hong Kong.